I've been asked to do a short interview with you about your presentation. Students from the local School of Architecture prepared some questions.
Okay.
And I also have some questions, but we start with a question from the students.
Okay.
They studied your plan, master plan, and their first question was, why do you add most of the program to the area which is already most developed, which already has the highest density? So why is the concentration of the program in that part of the bay?
Yeah, well, it is on this side of the bay, on the southern side, and this is where, because this is where the challenge is the biggest, and this is also where there is the best accessibility, particularly from public transport. There's a railway station here, there's one here, and there's one to be planned over there. So we really would like to develop the bay also in a sustainable way, so being based on public transport, but particularly this is rather dense. But by development, it is possible to somehow relieve the density because the denser parts are going to be connected to the water front again. So this is the main driver, and the way how we done it depends very much on the situations locally. For example, here on the area we have this stepping up sections where we actually connect the hill again with the water. Over here in Ancho, we let the city center grow towards the bay again, so it will be a rather complete city. And here at Reteria, we apply the same section which we have done over here, and we try to position the peninsula in its historical way as a peninsula in the bay.
Okay, there's another question. You with this plan, about 15,000 units will be added, and you said that you want to make it sustainable with public transport. But how do you reconcile suddenly a great number of cars with only limited space? So how do you integrate the cars?
Yeah, it's a good question because it somehow builds up for developing this area. Because in order to make the connection between the hill and the water, you have to literally bridge a level, and that is going to be built up. That will not be filled with mud, but it will actually be buildings. But it is a rather dark program, so quite a lot of parking facilities can in that way be realized, but also in such a way that they actually allow for this very strategic connection between the higher level and the lower levels. I don't have a section here, but perhaps...
How do the cars arrive at those sections? Because the section is clear, but how do the cars move through the plan?
Well, there is the N1, which will be downgraded because on a larger scale there will be a shortcut being made. So a lot of the through traffic will actually be on the highway situated. So, but that transformed N1 is an important access road. But here on the waterfront itself, we would like to make a kind of urban street, starting from here, ending up there. So the whole development is literally sandwiched between a car connection, and is being triggered 3 times by a train station.
I think the third question has been already answered in your presentation, because it was a question about the infrastructure. What do you need in terms of infrastructure to make this plan accessible? And this is more the question of regional infrastructure, which is the new railway, the highway. But I think you just explained that it's not going to be in the existing area, but it's going to be developed in another place.
Yes, we provide access to all the development in such a way that it will not jeopardize the existing communities any further with more cars.
The fourth question was a more sensitive one, also in terms of politics. Obviously, the idea of the master plan is connected to the move of the harbour to make a deep sea harbour. There's a question of the interdependency. So how strong are these two projects depending on each other, also in terms of the political decision making?
Yeah, there are some things you can say about that. The first one is, I think, if nothing has happened, if nothing will happen, then this harbor will die. I think some of those projects can be implemented and development in a kind of parallel situation with harbor activities. Some harbor activities we also retain, but some, for example, this kind of stretch factory, that is something which you can really question already. Is this a harbor activities? I don't think so. And second, there must be much better places to do those activities. But if the bottom line is, if you would like to make a kind of regeneration for the entire bay in a time span of 30 years, the harbor activities, the vital harbor activities, should be placed somewhere else. Yes.
There's a question which is related to that, which is related to the question of the future of harbors. Let me take the comparison with airports. In the 80s and 90s, there was a tendency to make airports bigger and bigger. So we needed international hubs, huge airports. And very few people predicted the rise of secondary airports. Well, they nowadays are very important, and the new companies, the new airports. In terms of harbors, also there's sort of a trend that you don't need only the huge harbors like Hamburg or Rotterdam, but there might be a future for small harbors. What do you think about the future of smaller harbors?
I think you should see those harbors like airports, secondary airports. They're always part of a kind of multimodal transportation system. So it is, as long as the harbor, the secondary airport, is embedded in those networks, there is a future for them, I would say. So there are possibilities to reinvent the harbor and to also have meaningful harbor activities, also when the scale of the harbor is actually quite small. But it's all about being connected in this multimodal network of harbor, railway, airports and motorways.
And the conditions now are not good at this location for that.
The conditions now are for smaller harbors. I would say those conditions they might be there. But you need to seriously transform the way how they appear in this particular site, and then there could be a kind of coexistence. But what is really very key is that activities like this kind of shred metal, etc., that is that's industry, I would say, and that has nothing to do with this kind of smart secondary small harbors. I mean, it is possible to produce cars like in Dresden in a glass box, and which is 100% integrated into a residential environment. So it is possible, but it should be smart. So keeping the harbor as it is at the moment is not going to be an answer. It should become smart, definitely.
My last question. You showed Haven City, which was very complex. The transformation process takes very long. There are many stakeholders. This is a project which is even more complex on the level of governance, because here it's having an impact on the 7 villages, but it's also having an impact on the city, on the region, even international. So in these kind of projects, who do you in fact regard as your client? So apart from the technical issue that you have a client, but who is the client for this kind of complex project?
Well, yeah, the complexity starts with what is the ambition for the project. And I think this is the ambition for this project is a regeneration of a bay, but the regeneration should have its impact on the regional scale. So the regional component in the client here is incredibly important. But equally important is, I would say, the local communities. So we should find a balance between those local communities and the regional the Euro-Basque client, and these two we should regard as key.
As we speak, there has been a sort of a demonstration outside of the hotel of the local people who made a sort of petition that they have not been involved enough by the local government, and they have their own ideas, and they would be would like to be regarded as stakeholders. Of course, you didn't invent this project, you started in the middle, but in general, how do you regard the position of the citizens, the local clients?
As I would say, as crucial. I mean, they are very important to have their commitment because they already live there. It really affects them on a very daily basis, and it is at the same time very important also somehow to inform them and open up their eyes about that the status quo can be changed, and in a rather positive way.
Does the architect does the designer, the planner have a role in this process?
Yes, I think so. Particularly the design has a role in there, because I mean, when you're an urban planner, the context is incredibly complex. I mean, in a physical way, but also like who owns this and who's the boss here. And our experience is that design is somehow can be really used as a kind of glue to bring different parties and different interests together and open up their eyes, and also to set sail for changes. And sometimes we have experiences with in various projects actually, that if you talk about change on paper in an abstract way, then it's really not in my backyard, because we know what we're having right now, and we are definitely not sure what we're going to get. But if you show them and listen to them and use them also as a kind of very important source of information about context, but if you show them what it could be, then suddenly say, yeah, this is actually fantastic. We really should set for this direction. So design as a communication tool is I think a key component in order to bridge those contradictions of interest.
Okay, let's hope then that this dialogue will start, even though the ship already left, but that the dialogue also with all the stakeholders will be part of the further process. Thank you very much, and good luck with the project.
Pleasure.